Palma in the Canary Islands. Tonight, the pictures again here, the river of lava pouring toward the sea. This is the fourth day now, threatening to destroy a key village, forcing 7,000 people from their homes. Firefighters could do nothing to save this building from flames. The scene repeated over and over again. And ABC's James Longman in La Palma again tonight.
Tonight, the 40-foot wall of lava threatening to incinerate a Spanish village. 1,800-degree molten rock swallowing everything it touches on its
1,800 degrees. 1,800 degrees. That's just about as hot as a torch that cuts steel. I have a theory in behind a big volcano blast like this, in which there's been several this year. There was 3 or 4 in Alaska that gave way all at one time, but then they kind of sealed themselves off and I guess become dormant again. I don't know. I know Yellowstone National Park has been giving away a whole lot of excess steam coming from the ground in different places, and rivers, streams boiling and heating up. Matter of fact, some people was over there the other day that was bathing a dog, and they're not supposed to get in water like that, and they was undecided in whether or not they was gonna try to find them or gather them up or whatever, because they was basically endangering the animal's life. But I got a theory in behind all this. Please watch.
seemingly unstoppable march through Spain's La Palma Island.
This is as close as we've been able to get to the volcano, and the thing that really strikes you is the noise. Just listen to that.
Are you scared? Listen to that.
The true scale becoming clearer, lava shooting hundreds of feet up. I could even feel its heat.
When the volcano first erupted over the weekend, authorities sprang into action and it felt like things were under control. But as new fissures have opened up, lava has spread more widely, and this situation feels more and more unpredictable.
Firefighters are working to divert this monster any way they can.
It's complicated. It's very complicated, and now we try with heavy machines.
They're digging trenches and building walls of earth to try and keep it away from homes. Already 400 buildings have been destroyed and more are in harm's way. Rosavira's Lorenzo was given 15 minutes to evacuate her home. Her neighbor Ana San Juan took her in. Now they both wait to see if the lava will come their way. She tells me it's all our work, effort, money of our lives. My life, my partner's life, a family. And you just don't know if you can lose it in an instant.
So James Longman back with us tonight from La Palma, and right there behind James, again, the volcano, the lava, I know, about 1.5 miles from the coastline now, and you were reporting crews now face that incredible challenge, trying to sort of direct the lava to keep it away from destroying more towns and more homes. Yeah, that's right, David, and the ash is really coming down now. And actually, since I spoke to you last night, a new wall of lava has appeared right behind us, just in front of a roadway there. It's coming down onto the road. That is exactly what officials here are trying to battle, to keep homes away from this endless stream of lava. David? James Longman, our thanks to you and the team again tonight. Back here at home, one more note from Washington tonight. After months of talks, bipartisan police reform talks have now ended without a deal. Major sticking points: restrictions on deadly use of force, how officers should be prosecuted, and on no-knock warrants. There were also divisions among police unions who were consulted during the talks. President Biden tonight expressing disappointment and saying he would look for a path forward, including, quote, potential executive actions. When we come back here tonight, we are tracking severe storms at this hour from Detroit all the way to the Northeast, the tornado watch in parts of Pennsylvania, and they're talking about winds potentially up to 70 miles per hour in some spots.
Let's go back real quick to where the volcano was blowing up. That's amazing that that you're looking at the distance there of about 1.5 miles is what he said, and it's still as big as what it is right there. 1.5 miles. That's a big fire. That's a big blast. This is my theory about volcanoes. We know that the earth is not a solid piece of rock like it one time was believed, just like we know that the moon is not made out of cheese. The earth is basically a live organism that's constantly shifting, it's constantly moving in various directions, widening, shallowing. You got the high tides, you got the low tides. The earth is constantly in motion. The oil that is burning in the core is part of the greasing system that God has put in place for this earth to basically take care of itself. As the earth spins, you got the core. The core is basically the same thing as what initiates your poles, North Pole, South Pole. I think it was Edgar Casey who had predicted that he believed that before the end of time that the poles would actually reverse. And believe it or not, scientists can prove or claim that they can prove that the poles has already reversed themselves at one time before. All the oil that we constantly drain out of the earth, I don't even know if there's any way of calculating how much that we're draining out of the earth, barrels, because there's so many different countries that's doing it, and you don't know that the figures that they're giving out is true or accurate or not. But let's just say that we're putting out, and I may be shooting at a conservative in here, 1 million barrels a day. 1 million barrels a day, 55-gallon drum barrels a day that we're retracting from the earth. Probably within a period of about a year, we could probably almost fill up the Grand Canyon with so much oil if we was to put it right back into the Grand Canyon. Within a year, we'd probably fill up the Grand Canyon, to give you an idea of how much oil that the world right now is extracting from the planet. Whenever something like this happens, because of the friction going on, and the heated rock becomes too heated to the point that it basically turns into almost a nuclear energy, to the point that it has to be released somehow, some way or another. As this intense event happens, God only knows at the megatons, the trillion megatons of debris, rock, fire, salt, everything else that's coming out of there per second, out of this thing, per second. I don't even know if the scientists can even get close to measuring how much is actually being released, especially one with this type of intensity. I mean, you could actually hear the sound of it a while ago whenever the guy was listening to it. I think whenever all that gets released, and I realize that the planet's a big, big planet, okay? But this is a big, big explosion that's coming out of the Earth's core, because it had to be released somewhere or another. As that pressure point is being released, it's also creating another pressure point, because now you've got areas on top of the core, which is the crest, the part that we live on, that now all of a sudden the displacement pressures have changed. Sometimes it subtracts, sometimes it adds. What I'm getting at, whenever stuff like this occurs on this level, look out, because usually what follows is some sort of a major, intense earthquake. Because as things is depressurizing themselves up underneath our feet, I mean, it was brought to my attention the other day while I was at my uncle's house. He said, is the earth becoming heavier because of all the people on the earth? And of course, my first response was, yes, absolutely, because there's almost 8 billion people on the planet. He goes, well, how about all the materials that is deteriorating and rotting, not just wood as far as trees and houses, but also metal itself. And I thought that out again, and I said, you know what, I really don't know then. Because we are losing a certain amount of material from the planet, but at the same time, the planet is regaining weight by human consumption. The point that I'm trying to make is this. There's areas on the platelets that at one time didn't have the pressure on it that it does today simply because of the human consumption. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure it out of whether or not we're actually adding weight to the earth or if it's basically balancing itself out because of the decline of things deteriorating pertaining to wood and steel. And of course, people dying. But the fact of the matter is, we are constantly draining the oil out of the ground. And by draining the oil out of the ground, it's creating hot pockets underneath the earth. As these hot pockets get so hot because there's not enough oil to keep them lubricated, these hot pockets explode. They turn into a volcano. Now, I realize there was volcanoes probably before man was ever on the planet. I don't know how intense that they was, but they claim that volcanoes actually occurred thousands of years ago. But I don't believe that they're having the intensity today towards what they had, let's say 5,000 or 20,000 or 60,000 years ago. I'm not saying that 60,000 years ago that they didn't have a volcano or two. I'm not saying that 20,000 years ago or even 6,000 years ago or even 2,000 years ago that they didn't have a volcano or two. But not on this magnitude. There was 3 volcanoes that instantly went off up in Alaska, probably about maybe 2.5, 3 months ago. If I'm not mistaken, there's been another volcano down on another island somewhere that's frequently discharged a great deal of its lava pertaining to these hot pockets. After a certain amount of material leaves the planet Earth, there's a void. In the void, it creates pressure points on the platelets that some is increased hundreds of millions of tons per square inch. Some is declining while others is inclining. Keep in mind, the world is constantly in motion. You got the tides that's moving in, tides that's moving out. You know, everything's in motion, even though we can't see it. Sometimes we can feel it. And of course, whenever there is a massive earthquake, then there's no way of denying, wow, something just gave way, didn't it? That's right. And that's the thing to be concerned about whenever you're seeing so many of these volcanoes that's erupting. And I strongly believe that it has a great deal to do with the millions and millions and millions and trillions of 55-gallon drums of oil that we continue to drain from the earth, because the oil was put there as grease in the center of cogs. As you got all them platelets that's moving around, that's got friction, and as the friction gets hotter, it creates gas, and then you got the release of the friction pertaining to the hot pockets that sends out a volcano. These things are intensifying. It's not just the carbon dioxide that man is putting up into the atmosphere pertaining to the smog and the smoke that's coming out of our automobiles and our big equipment and everything else in as far as the dangers that we're doing to the greenhouse. We're doing damage to this planet. And whenever you start seeing stuff like this happening, as frequently as what we're seeing it happening, yeah, it may be time to take notice about what's going on here. Listen to this one more time as this pressure point is being relieved, okay? And the gentleman in behind here, talks about how loud it is. And probably where he's at right now, he's probably every bit, I'm going to say a half mile from the actual point of where the lava's coming out at, and I'm sure he's downwind, which is given the advantage towards the heat not being so intense as it would be if he was up the other way. So let's just listen to this just for a second. That it don't sound like a blowtorch. It sounds more like a jetliner that's multiplied times 1,000 going off all at the same time. Listen.
This is as close as we've been able to get to the volcano, and the thing that really strikes you is the noise. Just listen to that.
The true scale becoming clearer. Lava shooting hundreds of feet up. I could even feel its heat.
When the volcano first erupted over the weekend, authorities sprang into action and it felt like things were under control. But as new fissures have opened up, lava has spread more widely, and this situation feels more and more unpredictable.
Firefighters are working to divert this monster any way they can.
It's complicated. It's very complicated. And now we try with heavy machines.
They're digging trenches and building walls of earth to try and keep it away from homes. Already 400 buildings have been destroyed and more are in harm's way. Rosavira's Lorenzo was given 15 minutes to evacuate her home. Her neighbor Ana San Juan took her in. Now they both wait to see if the lava will come their way.
Es todo el esfuerzo de trabajo.
She tells me it's all our work, effort, money of our lives. My life, my partner's life, a family. And you just don't know if you can lose it in an instant.
So, James,
something else to take under consideration that I don't know that scientists have looked at. Whenever a massive release like this happens, especially on an island, a smaller body of property, I'm pretty sure through the GPS systems now pertaining to what's going on with our satellites, they can measure how far that planet, how far that island is sinking as the pressure is coming out of one end, it's intensifying towards going down on another. I don't know if that would be considered millimeters, centimeters, or possibly inches, depending upon how long this thing does whatever it's going to do. We are readjusting the normalcy of what this planet is used to functioning off from versus the way that it is now because of what we're doing to the planet. Does weight have something to do with it? Possible. Just draining all the oil, taking the grease out of the cogs? I think definitely. But we'll use the word possible for conscientious sake. But whenever you start seeing these occurrences, it's frequent as what we're seeing them. And then if you'll watch, there's usually a pattern that somewhere there'll be a major earthquake. I don't know where, but as the pressure is being released off of one area, it's being increased in another. If we continue to drain as much oil we're draining out of the Mother Earth right now. Like I said, I'm estimating that we could probably fill up the Grand Canyon in a year's time of the amount of oil, the amount of fuel towards all the automobiles and all the trucks and all the equipment out there that's using crude fuel. We could probably fill up the Grand Canyon, give or take, in about a year. The Grand Canyon. So there's obviously things going on that we ain't seen the full effects yet. Whenever people talk about what's going on out west pertaining to the fires, well, that's just part of it. Fires is part of it. What about all the lakes and the reservoirs that's drying up? They're already having to mandate water shortages towards various places not being allowed to even daresomely water your garden or water your yard, which you're trading off one problem for another by not watering your yard. Now your grass is dying. Now it takes a chance on becoming toxic pertaining to catching a fire and catching your house on fire in case there was a major outbreak with fire. So we trade off one problem with another. These issues should have been addressed intensively 30 years ago whenever we realized that we was doing something extremely harsh to this planet pertaining to hybrid fuel, electric cars, etc., etc. We're almost a day late and a dollar short whenever it comes to the surviving of our society, especially in various areas that I know is going to be devastating for certain cultures out there, or certain continents out there, that's going to slip, shift, and shake. Slip, shift, and shake. That's the reason why whenever we end our program, we want to say good luck to all of us. And we wish for everyone, without a doubt, the best of the luck in regards towards the survivalness of all this. And it's not just the biological germs. It's not just us being trillions of dollars in debt. It's not just the Taliban pertaining to having terrorists attacking us. It's all the above. It's floods, fires, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes. I mean, they're fixing to talk about some major outburst that's going to happen later on tonight because of a cold front coming down that's north from here, right here almost in October, which is, I think, pretty much so unheard of by hearing tornadoes happening this far north, this far into the season. So let's speed up. Let's go through this real quick. That way we can get to the part where they're talking about the tornadoes. But I wanted to share that with my viewers pertaining to what God had showed me about these things, that I realize from a scientific standpoint, there's really no way for me to prove it. You know, whenever scientists says what they say, a lot of times they say what they say based around a theory, and it's not based around fact. It's based around theory. Well, whenever you continue to have a pattern that's increasing, now it's no longer considered a theory, but now it's considered fact. Just like the massive hurricanes that has been bombarding various parts of the planet, and the flooding, and the intense droughts. These things are intensifying. And to be quite frank with you, scientists is bewildered by it. They're absolutely bewildered about the ice melting on the poles and the seas, the depth of the seas rising, the way that they're rising, the temperatures of the ocean rising, the atmosphere rising. And we think that a half a degree or a degree, by and large, globally speaking, isn't that big of a deal. But believe it or not, whenever you mess the ecosystem up, it's a big, big deal. It's a big deal. Whenever we're no longer working under normal circumstances, it's kind of like the Republicans and the Democrats right now, still haggling the Democrats over the fact that they believe that the election was rigged. Anytime you're going to have an election, it's kind of like a sport. And you have to recognize there's always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. And it doesn't matter what team becomes the loser or what team becomes the winner, there's supposed to always be a winner and a loser. Donald Trump and the Republican Party did not want to play by the same set of standards that everybody else has played by for the past, I guess, 150 years, since 1860, and we see what happened in 1860 pertaining to a divided nation. But everybody has played by the same set of rules and recognizing, yeah, you put in what you can put in, but at the end of the day, you call it like you see it, and there's always going to be a winner and there's always going to be a loser. The Republican Party is not willing to accept those set of rules. They're not willing to accept the fact that they have lost. And because of it, they're not playing by the same standards of a Democrat-type society. Well, it's the same thing whenever you're dealing with the planet. Whenever we're doing horrendous, I'm going to use the word vigilante acts upon to the planet in scarring and marring the planet up the way that we're doing. Whenever you're constantly in motion towards doing this, you're going to change the dynamics from being in a normal set of circumstances to now a abnormal set of circumstances. The same way with the election. You have to look at it in a practical sense that right now we are not dealing with the 2021 election that actually was the 2020 election in November. But we are not dealing with the same normal set of circumstances that any other Democratic Party race would be dealing with right now, due to the fact that we got so many people that has either been convinced of a lie or they're intentionally trying to bring division and bring the country to its knees by separating us in two-party forms like this. And because of it, it's extremely dangerous. Extremely. Because you're no longer dealing with the same old normal circumstances.
Tonight, we are tracking those severe storms at this hour, including a tornado watch for parts of Pennsylvania. Heavy rain moving from Detroit to the northeast overnight and tomorrow. Waves on Lake Michigan could reach 18 feet. Flash flood watches in effect for 11 states tonight, from Michigan to New Jersey. Forecasters say tornadoes possible in Pittsburgh and Erie through late tonight. Wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour. When we come back here tonight, paying tribute to a beloved actor from Sex and the City.
The remnants of what once was Rose, those will both completely melt away and be nothing. But soon to be Sam is going to be one to watch. It's currently a tropical depression. Not really much here yet on the infrared satellite. It's tropical depression, winds at 35 miles an hour. This is actually the west coast of Africa behind me, so we're way out in the open water. Over the next few days, this will strengthen. Hurricane Center has it as a Cat 1, that is Category 1 hurricane by Friday, and even a major Category 3 hurricane with winds up to 140 miles an hour by early next week. Long term, we're talking 10 to 15 days from now. The long-range guidance has a good signal that this should recurve away from the United States, but we're way too early in the game to rule something out to Florida or the Carolinas. So the point is, there will be Hurricane Sam, and it is something to watch on the East Coast later next week. So tomorrow, after a chilly morning, it's 71, breezy, 77, and totally sunny on Friday. And if you were not a fan of the prolonged chill just yet, there's some warmth coming back. 87 next Monday, 90 next Tuesday. The humidity, though, will stay pretty low.
Just in tonight, Kentucky State Police says they found the bodies of Thomas Hungerford and Tammy Beecham. We reported to you at 5. Troopers have been searching for both of them. They said Hungerford kidnapped Beecham. KSP stopped a vehicle on US 27 near Stanford. Both bodies were found inside the car. They're saying it's likely a murder-suicide, and no other suspects are being sought at this time. Looking ahead now, the 7th annual Paduckie Derby is back again this year. With your purchase of a rubber duck, you could win $2,500, but you will help the Merriman House, who assists victims of domestic violence. And the rubber duck race will be on October 23rd at 3 p.m. It's at Montgomery Lake and Bob Noble Park Pond. The goal is to see 10,000 ducks adopted. To purchase one or several, just find this story at WPSDLocal6.com.
Well, coming up is Sports Will unveil this week's athletes.
He's staking his claim.
They're saying right now that the domestic violence in America has risen over 200% just in the past 6 months. They're saying that the gun violence pertaining to the death casualties in comparison to where it was this time last year is about 4,000 more deaths with guns this time this year than it was this time last year. They're also saying that children, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old children, that's another death toll, gun homicide toll, that is increasing on a day-to-day level. My last advice to society towards trying to keep it in check as a civilized society. These children that get out here and does these heinous acts, they know that they're going to be protected under the umbrella of being a minor. They're not stupid. They know that they're not going to get the harsh sentence as you would be if you was a grown adult after 18. My advice would be to lower the accountability range from 18 to 16, that anybody at 16 years old shoots and kills somebody will get the same type of mandatory sentence as it would be if they was 26 years old or 36 years old. I feel like that needs to be dropped at least two years. And they're also going to have to do something about the 12, 13, and 14-year-olds leading up to the 16-year-olds towards how harsher that their sentence is going to be. Because if you continue to tell a society that you can do whatever that you want to do, and you're not going to get the death penalty, and you're not going to get a harsh sentence, the way that society is right now, because so many people have gotten the short end of the stick, or felt like that they've gotten the short end of the stick by losing their jobs, or fixing to lose their house, or fixing to lose their car, or both. It is driving people off into a state of uncertainty. And this state of uncertainty is now rising. It's not just rising among the adults, but it's also rising among the children. And whenever you take away their hope, whenever you take away the momentum that at one time they used to have towards their hope, pertaining to their morale that helps keep them going towards a better tomorrow. This is all the results from the failure of the generations of politicians that has led us down this dark path that now we're all feeling the results of it. And if it's not coming home to you in a neighborhood near you, I promise you it soon will. Because this isn't just happening in isolated areas pertaining to Chicago, New York, LA. This is now hitting right here in your urban country setting areas to where people are losing their minds and they're basically going off the deep end. And rather than take a gun and end their own life, they want to go out in a boom. That way they'll kill 3 or 4 people or take 2 or 3 out that they know that they didn't like to begin with, as they themselves is getting ready to be taken out by a cop by suicide type deal. In other words, they're at that dumping age, they're at that dumping stage to the point that they're ready to jump off the cliff. But they don't want to just jump off the cliff, because if they jump off the cliff, that's just an out-and-out suicide. Well, if it's an out-and-out suicide, you basically shot yourself in the foot. But now, if you can get out here and kill 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 people, and then allow for the cops to kill you, well then, in their eyes, they can justify towards what that they have done, because they have accomplished the very thing that they wanted to do to begin with, which was to die. Why did they want to die? Because the politicians of yesterday has failed the hope for today and tomorrow. And because they look at things through a dim-witted, a dark glass, a smoke screen glass, and they see that there is no hope for society and there is no hope for them, because of that, these things are erratically intensifying, not just here in the good old USA, but all over the planet. And until we get a grip on this, it's only going to get worse. Just like the extreme weather events, and just like the volcanoes, it goes along with the warming of the oceans, that goes along with the bad storms. One dilemma helps to create another dilemma. It's kind of like a dominoes effect. One thing affects another thing affects that thing, and then that thing affects something else down the road. I mean, whenever we have dead fish that come up to the sea in thousands and thousands, and we have green algae that's bombarding some of the areas that we've never seen before, that's poisonous. Whenever we have lakes that's drying up, whenever we have all these massive, intense hurricanes, and we're seeing the extreme from one perspective to the other pertaining to Mother Nature, yeah, something's going on. God's trying to wake his people up. God's trying to wake us up. Because if we stay on this path that we're on, we're only going to basically bring destruction into our own lives. And you talk about suffering. You think that you see people suffering now pertaining to people being homeless, people being out of their minds, people not being able to stay stable towards working for an industry. You think that things are displacing and going through horrible conditions now. You just wait until all those things start occurring and escalating, and which they already are. Just like I told you about the suicide rate. I mean, the homicide rate, in addition to the suicide rate, I'm sure the suicide rate has went up. That's been going up now for the past year and a half pertaining to the suicides. People don't see hope. They see despair. the devil has blinded them. And because they don't see no hope, they want to go ahead and jump off the cliff. But rather than jumping off the cliff, they want to go out in a boom. And maybe somebody would do it for them. Basically a cop by suicide deal. We're going to have to break the cycle if we're going to be a surviving, thriving society in the future. No doubt.
But the unique silicone cover on the skinny stacks
No doubt.
stretch
Fight that may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms, or
it is such a right-wing talking point that the.
My name is Sean Hayes. I'm from Yorkville, Illinois. When you've lost everything when it comes to health, you have no energy. Having good health is everything. After about 2 weeks of taking the balance of nature, my son made a comment that somebody could do a kickflip on a video. I'm like, I can do a kickflip. And he's like, no, you can't, because he has never.
Which is ultimately managed by the Illinois Department of Public Health. But they grant these programs to whatever is the largest health system in each of the 10 regions.
Okay.
So my team and I, we provide disaster preparedness services, training, education, and resources to any healthcare organization in our 23 county service area, which includes 22 hospitals and 35 EMS providers.
So you're actually looking over all of Region 5, which is, like, as you said, 23 counties, a wide area. What are you seeing in Region 5 when it comes to vaccination rates currently?
Well, we are still lagging behind the rest of the state, unfortunately. Some of our counties have done a stellar job. Jackson County, Perry County, Washington County, they've all done amazing jobs trying to energize their residents to go out and get vaccinated. But unfortunately, we have some other counties such as Alexander that are still hovering at around 17%.
He used the right word, energize or stimulate. That's what we need right now for a spiritual movement. That way it gets society back on focus again. And we'll see a decline of all these homicides. We'll see a decline of all these suicides. We have to have a way of stimulating people in convincing them that living on this planet is better than dying. I'm going to repeat it one more time. We have to convince people that's ready to jump off the cliff that this world is a better choice by living in rather than going ahead and jumping off the cliff. That's the $64,000 question, or the $1 million question, that we're all going to have to come in agreement with towards what we're going to do and how that we're going to do it, towards getting this engine back up and running again. Because obviously the stimulus programs that began, I guess, with Reagan, towards thinking that they was going to be able to pump a bunch of money into the economy, and all of a sudden everything was going to pick back up again and keep running like it was as far as maintaining its same momentum. I think those days is over with. And I'm not saying that some money into the system won't help, but as far as getting the true gears running again in this piece of machinery, not just here in America, but throughout the planet, it's going to take more than somebody trying to stimulate people with a dollar bill, especially whenever things are so out of kilter the way that they are. It's going to take an actual supernatural spiritual movement, a revival that hopefully will evolve into a revolution. If not, doom and gloom will be at our despair. Thanks again. Good luck to all of us as we end our program. Once more, God bless America, God bless our troops, and good luck to all of us. Thanks again. Shalom.